right, we're live. This is good, everybody. It's good to have you here, guys, tonight. I really appreciate you being here, and also those who are watching us via Facebook Live. We hope that the weather starts to improve so we can have more and more people here live, because those who attend live will get a lot more swag and a lot more personal interaction on this thing, but you can at least get the content and work along with us. One thing I want you to grab, if you're attending this class via Facebook, is this page, because this is the worksheet everybody who's here tonight is going to get. It actually takes you through things we're going to get very specific on. Now, this class is this is our intro class. We call this like level 1. Because if you've never moved your body intelligently at all in your lifetime, or if you have had a busier time in your life when you've been more sedentary and not able to exercise, I find this time of year is when we have a very captive audience. People who are actually looking to make a change almost always make a health goal this time of year. And so what I hope in this class we can do is actually give you the vision for that based upon the goal setting workshop we just did recently, what they might look like, and then we're going to work out the very specifics with you one-on-one after the class. And in our workshops that we actually have planned for this year, we have probably at least 4 to 6 different classes. Everything from family fitness at the YMCA to Madonna Proactive. We have body fit training. We have people who actually do group fitness classes. But it would be a waste of my time to talk to you about going to those classes unless I know specifically what it is you want to accomplish through your things, because then I can help rush to the specific thing. You could go to every class and actually find out you don't like 5 out of 6. Well, we could save a lot of time by having you go to the one you might be most interested to begin with. Does that make sense? So, anyway, this class here it is. I actually have taught this in the past with Valencia Price, and so what's nice is she's going to be here for the next class we do in this, where she's going to talk about her own personal story. I'll mention it tonight. But to hear her own story, going from basically a person who didn't really like to exercise at all to being a personal trainer, is quite a very neat evolution on somebody who actually really got the vision and saw the benefits it gave her, personally and professionally, to actually be a person who actually was involved in the movement. And guys, as we'll talk about this. So the first thing is that this matter whether you're a vet or a newbie, both people can improve. You know, people who actually have never exercised are very intimidated going to the gym when they hear the music pounding away and the meatheads in there dropping the weights on the floor and so forth. They're just like, this is like a totally foreign environment. Some people have done that, and they're looking to take it to the next level. There's actually somebody that I know that actually has probably changed their exercise routine about every 6 months to a year, either out of boredom or injury, which is something, it's a good lesson we're going to talk about. I'm going to mention this point at least twice tonight, that one of the most fire ways to actually either get injured or bored, or the reason people quit exercise programs is because of those things, and that comes from doing the same thing over and over again. So one thing I actually have done for people is that the only activity they're doing is running. A lot of times I say we just need to mix it up with something like elliptical or swimming or biking too, to change the stressors on your body so that you don't get injured. You actually can strengthen different tissues, and it's going to keep your mind engaged a whole lot more too, because that variety is actually really the spice of life as it goes. Number 2 is we're going to understand what your why is. The what and the how become very easy once you know what your why is. So when we go through this list of the whys and so forth, like if your why is because I want to be around for my great grandkids and able to sit on the floor and play with them, that's a very long-term thing. Some people may say, well, I want to fit into a wedding dress within a year. That's a short-term goal. Great. That's all good too. But it's only going to carry you so far. If you take the long-term goals for the highest levels of aspiration you have, and I can tell you the people I have worked with who say, I look at this as this is my temple, I'm taking care of it. This is actually the house of the Holy Spirit kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. They're going to care for it the best, aren't they? Right? You don't take care of those things like an outhouse, right? So let's make sure we take care of it well. Number 3 is we're going to get smarter. We're going to give you some facts, but we're also going to make you wiser. We're going to try to have you point you towards implementing what you learn. Again, this class is going to be on the beginning part of it, which is what do I want to accomplish through this thing? Answering the 5 or 6 questions such as who, what, where, when, why, and all those things. That's important. Then we're going to get into the very specifics of how we're going to measure our goals and what we're going to do to get there. The last 2 points are this. I want you to enjoy the results of your workouts. It's very rewarding to be able to, like somebody just told me tonight, to step on a scale and see 11 pounds gone. Isn't that great?
Yeah,
Takes just a few basic steps. It's powerful, John, right? Yeah. And then lastly, that you really would reach the point where you can pass this on to other people. That's when I think it's the highest level of what we call inspired living. You know it's true. You're actually doing it in your own life. You're seeing the results, and you're not keeping it to yourself, but you're making other people's lives better too. So I hope tonight, whatever you glean from this class, as you put it into use in 2024 and beyond, that you will actually see your life changing. And then please, don't be a hoarder. Don't keep it to yourself. Share with other people. Okay? So I'm going to do a fun little thing here. I've done this class before, and I like to start off with this, which is, let's say that this is your year, and you say, I'm going to invest in something. I want to get a good return for my money. Okay? Well, this business opportunity actually has some really cool things that you can actually expect out of this. First of all, it's actually a no-lose deal. Basically, it has low research and development costs. To take a drug from the research stage to actually having it being tested and then on the market and sold to people costs about $50 million. This costs almost nothing to do, so there's very low upfront costs. Number 3, there's a huge return on the backside of it. There's virtually no side effects. Patients actually enjoy it, and actually it's clearly superior when compared to control groups. There's people who don't get this particular thing. They do far better than people who actually are the people who basically do nothing, okay? If we actually engage in this thing, there's going to be a drop in type 1 2 diabetes to the tune of 91% less than it, which costs us, in terms of healthcare costs, over $500 million per day. You see heart disease drop by 50%, again, $500 million a day. Stroke reduced by a third. Stroke deaths reduced by half. Congestive heart disease, almost 2/3 less. Hospital readmissions for heart patients being reduced by almost 3/4. Blood pressure normalized. Heart and blood health, blood vessel health restored. What that means is that you actually make your blood vessels more elastic if you would do this particular thing. If you actually would take this particular product, shall we say, you're going to be more elastic. Cholesterol, triglycerides can become more normalized. Breast cancer is reduced by over 50%. Pancreatic cancer is reduced by half. Lung cancer is reduced to 10%. And look at that, that's in smokers too. Can you imagine that? Like, smokers are some of the highest risk people actually having lung cancer. If this is done, it reduces the risk of lung cancer then. Melanoma, skin cancer, which we often think is related to the sun, actually is reduced. Colon cancer reduced by half. Osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis have improved outcomes. Osteoporosis is reduced. New bone is formed. Gallstones happen less often. Gallbladder is being removed. It happens by 1/5 less. Strength, flexibility, and balance are increased. Bowel function and elimination are better. Immune function is better. And your antioxidant levels and anti-tumor cell protection is better too. That's pretty cool. That means we're talking about something that's actually anti-cancer as a whole. Because if your cells are actually getting oxidized, that means they're rusting out. You guys know what oxidation is a process. You bite into an apple, you put it on the counter, it starts to turn brown. That's a process of oxygen turning into compounds you don't want. Okay?
Oh,
so
okay.
this, yeah. Did you say, Joe?
Yeah. No, James, that's an expression.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And nutrition can help with this. So is this thing I'm going to mention here just a little bit. Death is reduced by 2/3. Death in 61-81-year-olds is reduced by half. Cognitive impairment is reduced by almost half. Alzheimer's by 60%, dementia 52%. The rate of aging is slowed. Physical function is actually either improved or at least preserved. Learning capacity can be as much as 12 times greater. That's crazy, right? When you think about the average person who say is getting to those later years, what do you think of this being the most mentally sharp people you know? A lot of times they're not. They actually feel like they're starting to forget things and so forth. They feel like they can't retain things or they can't learn as fast as they can with like little people. Well, it's actually going to prove that. The chance of being in nursing homes reduced. Serotonin levels increased. This is the stuff that makes you feel good, right? This is the thing that's produced after you actually have tryptophan in the Thanksgiving meal to use that sense of well-being. And it reduces the risk of depression by at least 20%, which I think is pretty cool. Okay? So, growth and healing hormones are increased. Stress and body breakdown of hormones is decreased, which is nice, so that hormones that you need to have available and be used will be helpful. This is all taken from the Journal of Applied Physiology, as compiled by James Chestnut, one of my favorite colleagues, and Richard Baxter. So anyway, so are you ready to invest in this? Would you be willing to put $100 towards this product if I could convince you that all those things are there's no negative side effects? That's pretty cool, right? Okay, so it's got the competition beat for comparison, like statin drugs. If you take a statin drug, your chances of actually having a heart attack is reduced by only 1%, and there's a lot of side effects that go with those things. So 1% reduction is not a very big deal, but if I mentioned up there, like heart attacks reduced by 1/3 to half, that's a massive improvement over what drugs are. Those things cause numerous side effects, and they're actually costly to both the patient and the insurance company. And then this other product I'm talking about actually costs about 30 minutes a day and the price of a pair of athletic shoes. Now you know what I'm talking about, okay? I'm not talking about a drug at all, am I? Right? I'm actually talking about something that is available already without prescription. It's not pharmacy. It's something you can find within yourself to do and apply. And what is it? It is exercise, right? Moving your body intelligently is capable of doing all those things I mentioned and more. Is that pretty cool? I mean, that to me is like, if you ever needed a reason, like, gee, I wonder why I'm doing this sort of thing, that's kind of the health benefit side of things. The thing you would say, gosh, I want to know what exercise, what's the benefit for me? But very few people will get excited about that alone. There's a certain percentage, the analytical people, the drivers, the real research-minded people would say, that's great, I'll do that just based upon those things. But somewhere along the way, you have to reach beyond your head down into your heart and find out what's going to make you take this information and then make it becomes useful to transform your life. Like, what will make you want to do this when the alarm clock goes at 5 a.m. or when it's 7 p.m. at night and you'd rather go home, but you need to do this sort of thing. How can we help you do that sort of thing? That's where we're going to start tonight with this whole thing here too. So, What you have to understand is that exercise is not a treatment for anything. Some people actually say, Doc, can exercise, can it treat my high cholesterol? Well, that's really not what exercise is intended for. Like people were exercising on this planet doing labor, right? Long before we even knew what cholesterol was, right? Exercise actually is considered to be a nutrient. It's an essential nutrient. That's actually they're referring to the literature. Physiologists, people who look at how the human body and all other species work too. Movement in an intelligent way, exercise is a nutrient. What does a nutrient mean to you guys? What does nutrient mean?
Something that, how do I want to word it? Something that is vital for life.
Yeah.
Like protein.
Right. Let's put it in the context of like nutrition.
Yeah.
Do you think of you're taking something that's out there like protein, right? And why is it important? Because you put it in your body for what reason?
Energy.
Yes, and for repair and breakdown, right? Because that's specifically proteins for those things too, and to make other body parts from as well too, right? So we're talking about something exercise is not something you put in a jar. That's something you do have to give your body, just like protein, to make something happen that's positive, right?
Right.
And when I say it's essential, what does that mean?
You gotta have it.
Yeah, if something's not essential, you can give or take, like it's got cable TV, right?
Right.
I can live without it. But oxygen, that's essential, right?
Yeah.
Well, exercise is like that. You have to have it. There's certain things exercise does for you that you can't get from any other source, and if you don't get it, life becomes very, very difficult. In fact, it will become impossible at some point. We'll talk about people who actually go into complete bed rest and what that means. So what this means for you guys is movement is good, lack of movement is bad, and can lead to this. Okay? That's what we want to see and we get going, guys. We're all going to die. The question is, how long will I be in the future, and what quality of life do I have between this point and that end? Exercise can make those years very, very good. In fact, people who stay active, I mean, they may not be breaking marathon records in their 90s, but they're still doing stuff, and that's pretty cool. They're still out gardening. They're still able to do stuff that they want to do and play with their grandkids, all right? So exercise, or the lack thereof, excuse me, affects every cell in your body. So your brain and nervous system benefit from these things. There is actually a study that's been shown. When I was in chiropractic college, we were studying anatomy, and what was interesting is they said, we think currently that the nervous system actually reaches full maturity about between ages 20 and 25. You have the maximum number of cells you're going to have. The goal for the rest of your life is trying to lose as few as you can. So in other words, drink in moderation, if at all, right? Make sure you don't smoke and do things. Don't let oxygen start to deprive your brain cells of what they need there too. But you're just going to keep continuously losing them. And what they've learned is you actually create new brain cells, or at least nervous system cells, every day. But it only happens if you're active. There's a hormone released in part of your brain, and it's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. You create approximately 700 to 1,000 new brain cells per day to replace the ones that you lost. They will go where they're most needed, but if you are sedentary, you're not making them, okay? Also, every movement that you make in your body when you're exercising goes through a part of your brain called the cerebellum, which is actually about half your neurons are there. It's the part of the brain that we check when you're doing a sobriety check. If a state patrolman pulls you over and says, "Have you been drinking?" and you say yes, and before he administers the test, he says, "Let's have you, the alcohol breath, right? They have you come out and do some tests where have you walk and try and touch your nose to your fingers and you're all over the place and stuff." That's your cerebellum not working well. It's involved in balance, coordination of movement. It's also involved in learning. They've learned that people who actually do movement while exercise while learning retain it better. In fact, Mark Twain said it best 150 years ago. He said, "I actually never trust an idea that came to me while I was sitting down." He said, "I just always keep moving. When I want to think of something for my plots, my stories, and he did those things there too." So it actually helps those things, and your nervous system gets more efficient, right? What's the old phrase? You either use it or you
Who's it?
Yeah, and sometimes it's just deconditioning, right? Like if you're working on Spanish every day for a month, would you be better? Okay, and if you put your Spanish down for a month, would you be better or worse at the end of the month?
Worse.
You'd be worse because you compress it. Your nerves haven't had that stimulation, right? Same thing's true with movement. Watch somebody who actually used to be, say, a really good athlete in a certain sport, hasn't played it for 20 years, and get them out there again. They remember how good they were, but guess what? They're far more likely to actually sprain something, right? Especially those sports that involve lots of multiplanar movements. Heart and blood vessel health. This is for sure, guys. I mean, when your heart is forced beyond its normal capacity of just sitting around to beat harder and faster to move more blood, it becomes more efficient. What happens to most people with the training effect? What happens to their pulse rate? If you train, it goes down. Do you guys know that at the peak of his fitness, Lance Armstrong had a resting pulse rate of 30? The average person is 60 to 72, right? So his heart beat once every 2 seconds, but it moved a ton of blood and oxygen.
Wow.
Whoosh, like a whale heart in there, just pounding away, right? Isn't that crazy? So that's how hard you train on that stuff, okay? And your blood vessels, like we said, they stay more clear, they have less plaque in them, they also become more elastic and they're able to expand and actually lower your blood pressure. Number 3, bones, right? Bones are just like any other tissue, they will respond to the stress you put on them. People who are very sedentary, especially as they age and they actually go through menopause, they start to see their bones diminish in mineralization. But they've also shown, if you've seen Dr. Craig's talk, and I'm going to encourage you to come to that actually in July, it's one of the classes we actually hear about osteoporosis, that there's a way to exercise that you actually force your bones to say, hey, wait a minute, I'm being encouraged to grow here really hard because I'm being exercised. They actually start to deposit more and more calcium into your bones, make them stronger, and lose osteopenia and osteoporosis, which is pretty darn cool, or at least halt those things. Joints. If you actually fall asleep on your arm in the middle of the night, how does it feel when you wake up? What happens to that joint? You just jump out of bed?
Sleep, no.
You're like, wow, this is really hard to straighten out, okay? Well, when you sit at a chair for long periods of time, as many people do, they might sit at their desk 6 or 8 hours a day, guess what happens to the flexibility in your hips and your knees and so forth? Does it get better, do you think? No, God did not design the chair, I assure you that. Versus someone who actually has a more of a walking job. I'm very thankful I'm in sex I can stand all day and be moving, okay? Muscles and tendons, right? And the resistance we have on those things. If you overload a muscle within reason, in other words, you go to the gym and pick something up and lift something heavier than you're used to, what happens to the muscles and tendons?
It's sore.
They break down first, they get sore, and then what happens when they repair, they get stronger. Now, if I stop using those things, right? Like some people haven't done a sit-up since 6th grade PE, right? The thing is, there's some washboard abs in there. There's lots of dirty laundry piled on top of it, too. They're very deconditioned, okay? Does that make sense? All right, so how about ligaments? Ligaments are things that actually are for holding yourself together. Exercise makes those get stronger, too. Lung capacity, my goodness. If you actually saw the recent movie that came out here called The Boys in the Boat, one of the things they talk in there is that they said the average person can process about 4 liters of oxygen in a minute. Their goal is to take these young guys and make them so they can process 8 liters of oxygen a minute. Doubles. Okay, it's one of the most demanding sports on the planet besides cross-country skiing. And your intestines, things move along better. You get less diverticulitis, less constipation, less irritable bowel syndrome, just because your things are being stimulated from that side to move. When you're bouncing around doing things tend to move along. People who are more sedentary tend to get backed up more. They don't have that regular movement of the bowels to empty them, and so things stick around longer. And as one of my friends says, your colon is not a savings account. There's no benefit. You don't get earning interest by keeping things around longer than they should. They should be going through instead of sitting around there causing problems. And lots of other benefits, you guys. There's so many things to benefit from exercise that it's almost impossible to list them all here too. So let's talk about this. The essential components of a fitness program. I'm going to go through what I would call kind of the general concept of these things. We're going to talk specifically about these things for you when I meet with you one-on-one. One component for sure is cardiovascular fitness. Okay, this is something we need to have to be able to have the endurance to go throughout the day. This is your ability for your heart to move blood, which contains oxygen nutrients throughout your system. So a person who is deconditioned cardiovascularly, typically what? If they climb a flight of stairs, what happens? Yeah, they're panting, they're stopping, they're bending over, saying, oh my gosh, this is killing me, right? And I'll tell a little bit of my story on this when we get towards the end here. But as I've been getting back into my routine in the gym after having my health crisis this past summer, one of the biggest things I got back into was using the elliptical. I went down to a concert at the Lead Center this past week with my wife. The elevator was out, and guess where I parked? The 7th floor of 7 floors. I was so thankful I've been using the cardiovascular gym. It was a little tough to get to the very top, a little bit. But I got there, and I was back to the normal breathing patterns within a minute. It was great. I didn't have to stop at all. It was great. Okay, so cardiovascular training, what they say is 3 times a week for 30 minutes is the bare minimum you need to do to have some type of training effect. That's where they start to see your fitness improve and the benefits of actually having lower blood pressure, lower heart attacks, lower strokes, and so forth. 3 times a week for 30. If you're really into it, you need to be doing 5 times a week for 30 minutes. Why is that? Because it actually boosts your immunity as well too. They actually showed in a South Korean study during COVID that people exercised 150 minutes a week, which is 5 times a week for 30 minutes, had a significant lower risk of even getting COVID to begin with. They also had less hospitalization. They had way less death from all things just because they moved their body. Those who had the least amount of activity, zero minutes of activity exercise-wise, had the highest rates of sickness, hospitalization, and death. So again, what they said in this article was that when you exercise, you promote something called immunosurveillance. Your body gets very good at recognizing what's foreign. What should I fight here? Here's a virus, here's a mold, here's a bacteria. Fighting those things, and then not overreacting to things like pet dander, things like that. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So to me, that's very important. Number 2, strength and flexibility. So strength. is the ability to exert a certain amount of force in a period of time. So lay down 2 people on a bench press. One can do 10 repetitions of 100. One can do only 5. Who's stronger? The one that can do 10, right? So our muscles have to have a certain size and ability to contract to do those things too. So once again, resistance training is what's going to be beneficial for that. And one of the things that we are trying to avoid as we age is something called sarcopenia. Sarc meaning flesh, penia meaning small, losing flesh. This is the person who, when they get to be 80, you come up and pat them on the back and you can feel all their ribs. They're super lean, right? There's no muscle mass there. That's not good. Actually, it means a person has low metabolism. They're also not very strong. If they start to fall, they're going to be in trouble. They're most likely to break bones, and they can't do effort. They just can't pick things up. They become very, I need help over here. If I fall, I can't get up. Things like that. Okay? So we have to work on strength training, which is going to be resistance training, flexibility. It doesn't have to be something necessarily this like this. Here's a very, that's just an amazing yoga pose I've never seen before in my life. But there's something to be said for this because people tend to lose flexibility as they age. The floor seems farther away. I can't touch my shoes. I can't touch my toes anymore. Bad things like that. They're more likely to pull things and get injured. Posture, in our office, this is a huge one. There will be things that we give specific for certain postures. In other words, a person who actually has, say, a right head translation or a forward head posture, the most common posture on the planet, they're going to do multiple repetitions of that in the opposite direction, specific to their posture. And then when they accomplish those things, we're going to give things that are general spinal conditioning things, to keep your spine strong all the way around. How about balance? Is that important? Well, you guarantee if you're over 65, it's important. If you play any type of sports like this, like if you're dunking over people like this, I guarantee you balance and things are important. I just talked for a group of seniors about 15 years ago. The CDC's website says that falls and the sequela from actually what happens when you break a hip, the surgery and all things, it's actually the 5th leading cause of death among seniors. Billions of dollars a year spent on just the effects of falls. If your balance is off, if you're uncoordinated, if you can't handle when you misstep going over a curb, you're in trouble. And so just doing cardiovascular training on a bike may help you with balance on a bike, but it may not help you with the balance on your ankles. You may have to do some specific things for that. Coordination, you just like to do something in a coordinated way. Here's a guy doing a multi-planar movement. He's putting groceries in his back. So he actually has to take them out of the cart, turn, place it down, and let it go without actually things breaking, and then return to position. That's a multi-planar movement. It takes strength, it takes flexibility, it takes coordination, and all these things. These things are what we call sport-specific or task-specific movements. And so if you are doing something, say if you're an older person who needs to help their spouse, or if you are actually a parent who has to pick up their kid a lot, you would do well to do some type of body camp or boot camp training or body overall fitness that is specific to those tasks that you have to do. You need all these things. What's great is if you can find activities that address all these things at one time. So we're going to encourage you as you go through these classes this year to find things that let you do lots of things in a period of time. One, for example, I'll just plug them right now, is actually body fit training. They actually, in about a 45-minute class, will address many aspects such as flexibility, endurance, and strength all in one. They actually have one that's called high intensity resistance training, or HIRT, H-I-R-T, and I think they say you will hurt a little bit after that class. But it's high, and they keep you moving, and it makes the training effect cardiovascular strength-wise too. But let's try to help you find things, because we say, well, man, that's a lot of things. If I did an hour of each of those per day, that's a full-time job. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm asking you to do a little bit of each of those and try to find activities that do multiple ones at one time. Does that make sense? Okay, great. This is good. So, Valencia's story, I'll just finish this real quickly. Valencia, when she tells her story, she'll tell you that before she got into exercise very much, it was not a big deal. And there were some barriers that she had to cross to get there. But she actually hit a critical threshold where she said, you know what? I'm tired of living this way. I actually want to have a change in my life. And so not only did she become very conditioned on her own, she was so into it, she actually now has her certified personal trainer as well too. And then she'll tell you about what her routine was when she would get in such great shape and why she continues to exercise. And then, of course, now she actually helps other people do it as well too. And I'm so impressed with her. This is the person who's gone through the full process, right? Totally disengaged, running the other way, learning about it, not doing anything about it, then actually doing something about it for herself, then learning more about it, then actually doing better at it herself, and then passing it on to others. She's made the whole spectrum change, as we call it. It's called the engagement spectrum in our office. And we love to see people go through that process, and she'll tell you about that, but not tonight is a big one too. So let's get into this. We actually have approximately 10 minutes left, I believe. Yes, actually 5 minutes left. So let's go through this real quick. What I want to do for those who are here tonight, I'm going to take you through what I want you, this is your homework from this class, okay? The first thing here is going to be my why. What are the excuses that I'm giving for why I have not exercised. What do we need to silence to make sure you can get these things? First of all, is your why too small? Is your why saying, well, I want to lose 5 pounds? Okay, great. That's not a bad goal. But once you reach that goal, what's beyond that? Are you going to stop? Is that it? Would you like to retain that? Would you like to actually maybe see yourself running a 5K race or doing something to challenge yourself to get stronger, whatever it is? Do you actually have a plan, or is it going to be like, well, is it going to someday I'll, right? We talked about that, going to someday island, someday I'll what? Someday I'll exercise, someday I'll do this. Well, when's that going to be, right? There's no plan of that. In fact, people start to look for other excuses, like, oh, that's a good one, I'll borrow that excuse for a while. I wore that one out last week, I'm going to try this extra excuse this week, right? That's all people do is they scare excuses, okay? Number 3, lack of time and money. Well, guess what, guys? These are things that are under your control. I get it. If you don't have the money for a membership for the gym, okay, let's get out and walk. That costs you nothing except some time. I don't have enough time. Well, can I help you actually budget your time better? Some people really do have very packed schedules. Mine includes that. But I tell you what, guys, I have a plan for if I go in the morning, or if I don't make it in the morning, when I go at night. There's a very specific plan you can do for those things there. I'm not disciplined. Well, you may not be, but you know what? All of us can be more disciplined. And guess what? One of the most great things to build the habit of doing something is to make sure you set aside time every day for 3 to 6 weeks and make it become part of you. If you can do it for 3 or 6 weeks, it's something you will have to actually purposely not do past that point. It takes that long to build a habit. Some people build it faster, some don't. Do you see how important that is? So, I don't belong to a gym. You don't have to. It's nice. I like it. The fact that I have that money come out of my account every month makes me run it. I want to make use of that. I think it's a good thing. I want to make sure it's an investment in health. I don't just keep paying for that. Okay? What if it's cold out? Well, we've had a good taste of that lately, right? When it's minus 40, wind chill, you certainly know you're alive. It's also not a great time to be outside exercising. It's actually dangerous, right? So what's your plan? So if you have no plan when it gets cold, then guess what? Your exercise plan will suffer. But if you say, I will exercise at least down until, say, 20 degrees. If it's below that, I'm going to go do this inside somewhere. Great. Okay? I have no or too high of goals. Don't set them so high you can't reach them. They're not attainable, but to have no goals is not good. And number 4, or number 10, I guess this is here, do you need a trainer, right? Some people say, I will never do something unless I have somebody show me how to use this stuff, because they have that ignorance excuse. Or they'll say, I won't show up unless I have somebody I'm going to be accountable to who says, where are you, right? So that's a great thing. And so I think there's a great place for trainers, guys. You may choose to have one to get you started and not need them anymore, or you may want them there all the time. I think a workout buddy is a great thing. Right? Did you say, Aaron?
Oh, yeah.
They're pretty cool, right? So these questions we answer here on specificity are, first of all, who's involved? Is it just you or somebody else? Number 2, what? What is it you want to accomplish? Let's get very specific on these things. Okay? I want to fit back into a 32-inch pant. I want to weigh 150 or less, whatever it may be. Number 3, where will you complete the goal? Is it going to be in a gym primarily, out on the road? You know, when the weather gets nice again, starting in March, there's all sorts of people on the bike paths. There's great ways to do that out there, but it's not going to be for year-round in Nebraska at least. When? When do you want to do it? This means both on a calendar and on a clock. Okay? What time of day, and when will you start this, and what changes need to be made along the way, right? I think 90-day goals are the best. If you can do something for 3 months, guys, that's fantastic. And make sure it stretches you a little bit. Don't say, I just want to lose 2 pounds. You say, I have to lose 2 pounds. Once you say, let's see if we can stretch it to maybe 5 or 10, that'd be really good, right?
Or 11.
11, John, exactly right. There you go. Which requirements and constraints might get in your way? So the question is, well, I don't have fitness shoes. Well, guess what? You can get some, right? I mean, let's go shopping for those things, online, in a store. There's lots of places, guys, that we can actually recommend to you that have fantastic footwear for virtually any sport you could be engaged in. And some of them are actually what we would call like CrossFit shoes. Shoes you could wear for multiple things, biking, aerobics, weightlifting, and the whole thing there too. And of course, guys, the last thing, guys, is why. Why are you doing this? Because if you can come back on your why, that's what's going to get you out of bed when it's dark and 4:30 in the morning. Did you get that? Okay? Specificity is important because you'll know when you reach those milestones, like the date, location, objective, and you'll know for certain you actually have achieved your goal. And then the next thing, guys, is going to be the measurable part of it. This answers the question of how or how much. So how much, how many, how fast. It's one thing to say, I want to get stronger. Okay? That's my goal. I want to get stronger. Well, that's nothing. But if I say, I want to bench press 225 pounds by June 1st, now I know where I'm headed, right? Let's say I'm currently able to bench press 135. I don't be able to add about 90 pounds to my bench press. There are programs that are specifically out there where you can actually dial in and say, if I'm starting here, my goal is to get it here. It's going to actually put out a plan for you to actually have the increased levels of training, both in terms of weight and repetitions, to get to that point. If it's impossible, like if you say I want to go from 135 to 1,000-pound bench press, that would not work, and I think the programs will tell you that's not going to work. But there's ways to do it, but it should definitely be a stretch goal for sure. And so my response would be, it's going to be, well, if I say my Y is too small, I have to get a bigger Y. If I have no plan, I better make one. If I have lack of time, money, I need to find time and recommit my money to other things like that. You go through that list there. Number 2 is asking your student, what do you need? Okay, so we're getting rid of the bad stuff. What do I need? One thing you may actually need is a better reason to do what you're doing. You know, I think to look good at the pool in the summer is a fine thing to do if you want to. But when the cold weather comes and the pool's drained, where's your motivation go? It's got, what's your motivation to stay in shape during the winter? I don't know. Okay? I need a better plan maybe. There's lots of plans out there, because I was actually amazed at when I was just looking even on the, what's that one app called Pinterest?
Oh, yeah.
There's a ton of workout programs on there that people have posted on there that people use. It's incredible. There's just all sorts of work programs there. So I have to have better usage of my time and better allocation of my money. Is there something I have to say no to? Bill Phillips, who wrote the book called Body for Life, said this. He says, half of what you want to get out of life is actually what you have to say no to get it. Right? There are lots of distractions in the way of goals. You have to have what I have to say no to. Do I need a good kick in the rear? Is there somebody who actually can hold me accountable? Either the person I'm going to be working out with, hey buddy, if I'm not at the gym by 5:30, call me, right? Or somebody you actually just need to have some accountability with. They're not doing the goal with you, but they need to hold you accountable and maybe talk to them once a week and say, here's what I'm doing. Do I need a better facility? You're in a place where you don't like the facility, you don't like the people you train with and stuff. It doesn't fit your ideas and standard. We'll go to a different place. How about a weatherproof plan? Do you have one of those for when it is 40 below? Okay. If you don't have that, as soon as the day gets cold, the best laid plans will go out the window. Smart goals, again, we set something specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based, and don't need a trainer. The question is, where will you find these things? If you don't go looking for them, guys, they're not going to find you. But they do say that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So I guarantee you, if you are motivated and excited, you start telling people I'm looking for something like this, I'm amazed. When I get very specific on what I'm looking for, within usually a day or a week, that very answer to that thing actually happens. Praying about it is certainly a great thing, but just sharing with people is a great idea too, all right? The 3 most common reasons people stop exercising is boredom and injury, and their why is not big enough. And that's because they mindlessly do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. My question is, what's your plan for it? Again, I would really encourage you to think about doing something for a season and then changing so your body gets that stimulation of doing something different, keeping your mind engaged, keeping you injury-free, and keeping you from getting bored as well too. There's so many ways to work out now, guys. I just can't tell you that boredom should not be an issue. You're not looking hard enough if you're getting bored. So the last thing I want to talk about is, are you ready to exercise? Proper nerve supply is a must. Okay, there are nerves that come from our brain that go to things like our heart and our lungs and our muscles and our joints and so forth. Okay, first of all, what if I'm not exercising because I actually have pain? Does that person need chiropractic help? If I really stop exercising because I hurt, should they be checked by a chiropractor? Absolutely. Let's say I have no pain, but I'm concerned about actually can my heart hold up under the duress of me pushing it harder. Would be a good idea to actually have a chiropractic evaluation for that, or my lungs, or make sure that my muscles don't get pulled, right? See, when subluxations occur, only 20% at most have to do with pain. The rest actually are telling you these different tissues what to do. I think if you're going to check and see if you have subluxations based on your own assessment of yourself, and because you have no pain, you say I have none, you're wrong 4 times out of 5. That's pretty bad. But I guarantee you these tissues are going to suffer if you actually have nerves being stressed like this. So let's get checked out. Have things done where we can do scans like this, or postural assessments, x-rays. Have a doctor palpate your spine and see what's going on. Get adjusted, for heaven's sakes. Rebuild your spine if you need to, so you can withstand those things. I guarantee you take 2 people who are twins. One actually has terrible posture, one has great posture. The one with great posture has less likelihood of getting injured and has more likelihood of reaching their goals. Okay? Flat out. Their organs are under less stress because they're getting subluxated too. So, guys, here's the last thing I want to point out to you. This is the beginning. Whatever I think about sometimes, what's my why? And that even sometimes is enough for me. I think about these people that I've seen through the years. Like there's this son and father team where the son actually had cerebral palsy, and the dad found himself in a really tough situation health-wise, and so he knew he'd get in shape, and so he started taking 5K runs. He started actually pushing his son. Eventually turned into 10Ks, half marathons, and I think between the two of them, they ran almost 100 marathons together. I think within the past year or so, the father has passed away, sadly. But they got to spend some great quality time together running these paths just because dad needed to get in shape. And his son could actually ride along there too. How about amputees? If people come back from wars or get hurt and they can run with these all sorts of crazy artificial joints and stuff, I mean, that's pretty cool. Here, look at this special athlete here. He's missing a leg. He's going to throw a javelin. Here's a person doing a butterfly stroke without lower arms. Here's somebody diving without arms at all. This is Ernestine Shepard at 72 years old. How's she doing?
She looks like she's 50.
I know. This guy here, growing old is not for sissies, right? Those should serve as a motivation or as a good kick in the pants, right? That's the one you want to post your wall and say, look, if that dude can do it, so can I. So, guys, I want to thank you for coming tonight. Again, I want you to pick up this worksheet and actually go through this one by one, answer those questions, because it'll help you become very dialed into what it is you want to accomplish. And then when we teach our class next time about actually reaching your specific goals, we will cover this as a topic as well too. But I want to meet with you one-on-one and make sure we set that in place before we even get to that point. So thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week when actually Terry is here talking about ideal protein and actually how to lose weight in a very scientific and a very systematic and a very safe way. We'll see you then.